Is the U.S. Defense Department, the Department of War, really capable of and ready for a major war with China or with Russia? The answer seems to be no. The United States doesn't have enough missiles to rearm its own ships or to even last 1 or 2 weeks of intense conflict. We're going to walk through some of the numbers that we're getting out of the Defense Department, the Department of War, and this has gone under the radar. Like everyone's gone radio silent on this. It's such a bad situation that the Department of War doesn't want us to talk about it. But we're going to talk about it anyway, because the chances of the United States getting into a shooting war in the next little bit in Europe or with China is growing by the day, and the United States is ill-prepared for it and not taking enough steps to get prepared. We're going to talk about artillery shells. We're going to talk about missiles. We're going to talk about anti-missiles, interceptor missiles. We just don't have enough of them. And the numbers that have been released are quite troubling. Friends, World War III is just around the corner, and we're not ready for it. All right, we're going to cover that and a whole lot more. Let's get into it. Welcome to the Poplar Report. I'm Steve Poplar. I'm an accountant by trade. If you haven't been here before, make sure you hit that subscribe button. If you've been unsubscribed by the powers that be, make sure you resubscribe. We also do want to thank our sponsor, BlockTrust IRA. Now, Jonathan and the team over at BlockTrust IRA deal with cryptocurrencies. Now, like it or not, cryptocurrency is here to stay. And as someone who analyzes financial trends daily, that's why even I have started investing and dabbling in cryptocurrency. Now, Jonathan and his team over there at BlockTrust IRA makes crypto investing simpler than ever before. Even for beginners, they have American specialists guiding you every step of the way. And they believe that while cryptocurrencies have changed the game, they believe that it's changing again with artificial intelligence trading strategies. Their exclusive access to the award-winning Animus AI technology, we talked about this yesterday, it's recognized as #1 crypto platform by Bitcoin Magazine and others. It delivers impressive returns while at the same time minimizing downside risk. So if you want to find out more about that, for a limited time, you can get up to $2,500 in free bonus cryptocurrencies if you transfer some of your cryptocurrencies over to their platform, or if you transfer over an IRA, 401k, or something like that. Please be wise in how you invest, but I know a bunch of you guys are in cryptocurrencies. This is a great way forward, I think. All right, let's move on here. We got, you can find them down in the pinned comment down below. There'll be a link at the end of the video as well. So the United States has about 25% of the Patriot missiles that it needs for current war plans. So this is from The Guardian. They did a report a little ways back in the spring, and they found that the United States doesn't have enough Patriot missiles, doesn't have enough Tomahawk missiles, doesn't have enough SM-6s. This is a serious, serious problem. If we're going to get into a major force conflict with China, China is rapidly building up its missile forces, while the United States can't seem to build any missiles. How bad is it? The United States' premier interceptor missile for ballistic missiles is the SM-6. The United States produces 125 per year. Now, if you look back to what happened over in the Red Sea and around Yemen, we were firing off SM-6s like nobody's business. Boom, 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 boom. In the conflict between Iran and Israel, the United States was launching interceptor missiles, boom, 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 all over the place. It was estimated that we may have depleted 25 of the entire interceptor missile capacity of the United States forces in just a few months. Put it another way, and it's hard to get hard, fast numbers from the U.S. military, but in 2023, we fired more interceptor missiles than we have in the past 30 years combined. Let's just say we probably fired off more than the 125 we purchased. And the United States is trying to ramp up production of the SM-6s, but we can't. Now, not only do we have SM-6s, but we have the slightly older, slightly cheaper SM-3s. Now, we have the SM-3 Block 1Bs. Don't worry about the numbers. And we decided to replace them with SM Block 2As. Okay, I know it's gibberish, but we were making 153 per year of the SM3 Block 1Bs. We've reduced that to making 0 of them, and we're replacing them with the newer Block 2A. Sounds great. So we're making 153 of them a year? No. We're going from 153 Block 1As, Block 1Bs to Block 2As, 12 missiles per year. Yes, friends, I said 12 missiles per year. When you take all the SMs, that's a standard missile, but we're using these for the interceptors and such. These things, with the Tomahawks, all these vertical launch tube missiles, so you got your Aegis destroyers, you got your Aegis cruisers, you got basically everything that has long-range missiles on it, uses these vertical launch tubes. Now, we made them standardized, that's cool. But when we look at how many replacement missiles we have ready to go, if every naval ship, if every destroyer launched all of their missiles, if they just unloaded, all of the destroyers in the U.S. fleet unloaded all of their missiles, they went back to base, assuming they go to whatever base they need to in order to get the missiles. The United States Navy doesn't have enough missiles to rearm the entire fleet, even once. So this is sort of like you having a boomstick at home, but not having a second magazine. Just having a couple spare shells left over. You know, your boomstick, you got one magazine, and then that's it. That's it. Hopefully you don't need another one. Now, for the Department of War, this is concerning, to say the least. Very concerning. That we can't even rearm our own Navy ships, and the idea that we can ramp up production is really kind of a joke. The United States, super seriously concerned about what's happening in Eastern Europe, decided to ramp up artillery shells. Now, artillery shells are a lot less complicated and a lot less sophisticated than SM-6 launch platforms in disposable launch tubes, right? It's a little easier to make 155 millimeter artillery shells. We were making X number of artillery shells. We ramped it up. We're like, we need to get up to 100,000 artillery shells per month. Definitely. Let's do that. Let's do that as quickly as possible. Back in September 2024, we were making 40,000 artillery shells per month. In August, we made 40,000 artillery shells for August. Now, if you're kind of doing the math and going, well, we're supposed to be scaling up, and for over a year, we haven't increased production at all of artillery shells. Right. These simple metal casings with primer and stuff in there, it's a lot simpler than building a flying missile that can, hit tiny targets moving multiple times the speed of sound in the vast sky. Okay, SM-6s are massively, massively more complicated, and so are all of these interceptors, and even the Tomahawk missiles are so much more complex. We bought a total of 1,500 SM-6s in the entirety of the U.S. Navy history. Now, We're not told exactly how many of those we've expended, but let's just say we've probably expended at least 500 of them. And we produce 125 per year. Do the math on that one. We maybe have 1,000 interceptors on U.S. Navy ships or in storage. China has over 1,000 anti-ship ballistic missiles. Now, when we fire interceptors at ballistic missiles coming in at U.S. Navy ships, we usually fire more than one. We fire maybe 2, maybe 3. We need to hit that. We need to hit it. There is no missing on this because that ballistic missile looks like it's going to hit a U.S. Navy carrier or a destroyer or whatever. You got to hit it, right? So China has over 1,000 ballistic missiles. We're not talking about their hypersonic missiles at all. We're not even talking about them. We're not going to talk about their cruise missiles. We're not going to talk about anything other than their anti-ship ballistic missiles. They have 1,000 of them. And the United States has in its arsenal, at most, being super optimistic, about 1,000 interceptors that are capable of intercepting them. That's a problem. That's not just a little problem, that's a really, really big problem. And the fact that we've been sitting off the coast of Yemen, letting them shoot at our Navy ships, and we're wasting super expensive interceptors against these Houthis, was one of the worst strategic decisions any president has ever made. And we're looking at the past president, really, for most of that. That's just absolutely insane. The United States is making 40,000 artillery shells per month. Russia is making 250,000 artillery shells per month. We're talking about the 155 millimeter standard artillery shell. That's the mainstay of NATO. Russia doesn't use the 155, but uses, I forget what it is. It's like 130 or something. It's comparable. It's their standard shell that they use. They're making 250,000 per month. China is making 3 times as many artillery shells as the United States. So let that just kind of give you a feel. While the United States is building big gargantuan targets to get shot at on the sea, China and Russia are building fast, mobile, long-range missiles that can blow up those targets. We're not in good shape as we go into World War III. And our allies are not helping all that much. The United States making 125 SM-6 missiles a year, which is abysmally small. That's not really preparing for war. That's preparing for a short-term conflict that hopefully we win within a week. And if you go over to the Air Force, the numbers are just as bad over there. Our smart munitions, our long-range air-to-air missiles, we just don't produce enough of them. It's hard to produce these things that are super expensive, that are then going to sit on the shelf, hopefully never to be used, but then at some point you're going to go back to the shelf and go, you know what? It might work or it might blow up. At that point, do you use it? Well, you use it as a training round, but you can't trust those older ones. So either you can mass produce lots of them and hope you don't need them, but then you've wasted tons and tons of money, or you just kind of produce enough for peacetime and hope against hope that in wartime you can ramp up production. But we've seen that hope of ramping up production is really not happening. Supposedly by 2029, the United States is going to ramp up production of SM-6s from 125 per year to 300 per year. If what we've been seeing with our ramping up of artillery shells is anything to go by, I would not hold my breath on that at all. So is the United States going to be able to take on China in a conflict over Taiwan? It's not looking great. And that the fact that China has been building these cruise missiles, hypersonic missiles, and ballistic missiles aimed at taking out U.S. Navy ships, we're going to have to park our ships really far offshore, or else we may lose major capital ships like several carriers, several destroyers, cruisers. This would be at massive cost of American lives, and not to mention would dent the American invulnerability like we haven't seen it happen in generations. Friends, no one's talking about this. No one's talked about this for almost a year now, it seems like. So I'm going to go out there and I'm going to talk about it, give you a warning, give other people a warning. We've given away far too much of our military missile assets to places like Ukraine, Israel, and expending them in the Middle East ourselves. We're not replacing them, and we're not replacing them fast enough. We've borrowed hundreds of thousands of artillery shells from places like Korea. We need to pay those back, and we're not producing enough to pay them back. So we don't actually have a number on the stockpiles of U.S. Defense Forces, U.S. Department of War, but everything points to the fact that our stockpiles of munitions is extremely low. And the fact that we are dependent upon China for some of these materials that go into our weapons, like antimony, that's just one example. China has banned the export of antimony to the United States, and we use them in our artillery shells. We now have to source that from other countries, and let's just say not too many countries actually produce much of it. We need that in 300 different kinds of munitions that the U.S. Department of War uses. That's just one example of how China has our production lines all messed up. And when it comes to ramping up production, China can ramp up production like nobody's business. Their manufacturing is off the scales. The fact that they produce over 150 times more ships and tonnage than the United States any given year should also be an eye-opening thought. Yes, they're making targets much faster than we are. They're making targets faster than we're making missiles to sink those targets. That's a scary thought, isn't it? All right, friends, let me know what you guys think down in the comments down below. If you want to find out more information about BlockTrust IRA, which is Jonathan Rose's focus on cryptocurrencies. Of course, they're still doing it with Genesis Gold, of course, too, but this is a separate endeavor. If you want to find out more about BlockTrust IRA or what they're doing with their AI platform that trades for you, there's a link right there on the screen. Just tap on that and fill out your information. They'll get in contact with you. If you want to check out another video from this channel, there's one right up here. I'll see you over there, or I'll see you guys later. Steve Poplar of the Poplar Report out.